Greetings to all who have joined us for Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated Lambda Eta Omega Chapters State of the Emergency COVID-19 Town Hall. I am Alexandria C. Marbury, a proud member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated Lambda Eta Omega Chapter in Gaston, Alabama. It is a great honor and privilege to welcome each of you as your mistress of order for this evening. We hope to provide you with a snapshot of real-world information to arm you for your battle against COVID-19 fatigue. As we continue to navigate through the pandemic, if you or someone you know begin to struggle with anxiety, depression, or thoughts of suicide, the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Their number is 1-800-273-8255. Again, their number is 1-800-273-8255. We are also sharing the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline's website as an additional resource. It is without further ado that I would like to introduce our chapter president, Ms. Lakeisha Harris. Ms. Harris is a Silver Star member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, having 25 years of service to all mankind. Let us welcome Ms. Lakeisha Harris.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Lakeisha Harris, president of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Lambda Eta Omega Chapter, Gadsden, Alabama. It is my pleasure to welcome you tonight. As women of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, we are consistently at the forefront of important issues. It is with that focus in mind that we welcome you to a night that will help you better understand the current state of the COVID emergency. In March 2020, the World Health Organization declared the COVID-19 outbreak a pandemic. Tonight, our eminent speakers will share their knowledge with you so that you are able to make informed decisions regarding your family's health. So it is again with great pleasure that I welcome you and welcome our esteemed panelists who are diligently working to provide accurate information on the current state of our COVID emergency.
Thank you, President Lakeisha. Before we move further into our program, we ask that you please join us in a word of prayer for families, children, the city of Gaston, Etowah County, Alabama, and the nation. Ms. Hawkins, will you please lead us in prayer?
Good evening, everyone. Could we all bow our heads in a word of prayer? Lord, we thank you for the opportunity to gather here today. Thank you for being our Lord, our Savior, and our King. For it is in you that we live and breathe and have our being. Most of all, God, thank you for your Son, Jesus, who gave us victory over sickness and disease. Tonight, we lift up our children, families, our county, our state, and the nation. We pray a hedge of protection and plead the blood of Jesus over our children. We pray for families that they will walk in love and unity and turn the hearts of the parents back to the hearts of the children and the hearts of the children back to the parents. Give our leaders of this great county, state, and nation wisdom and bless them to make godly decisions according to your will and your word. For your word says it is righteousness that exalts the nation. And Lord, as we listen to these panelists and each speaker concerning this state of emergency, may we take the necessary precautions to make each and every one safe in this time. We thank you for these answered prayers. In the name of your Son, Jesus, I pray. Amen.
Amen. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for our first Ivy Pearl break. For our community members registered before May 13th, you have been entered into a special drawing. I cannot wait to see who our lucky winner is, and congratulations.
Good evening and welcome. We have our wheel for our early bird registrants. Therefore, if we can spin the wheel at this time, you must be present to win. Is Miss Wanda Jackson present this afternoon?
I'm here.
Excellent, excellent. Well, Miss Wanda, I'll be getting in touch with you via your email address to get some additional information so we can mail you your $50 Visa gift card. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We would love for you to feel more at home with us. Allow us to provide you with a better understanding of the purpose of tonight's event. Miss Audrey Montgomery.
Good evening. Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Lambda Eta Omega Chapters Connection and Social Action Committee wishes to extend a heartfelt welcome to all of our guests. It is an honor and a privilege to have you with us on this evening for our town hall meeting. Our wish is that the information presented will be beneficial and that you are able to take it back and share it with those in your community. Once again, we are excited to have you with us, and we pray that you feel comfortable enough to be active participants in our discussion. Why is there a need for a town hall meeting? To date, there have been over 28,778 cases of coronavirus and 651 deaths attributed to the disease, in Etowah County alone. Mask mandates have been lax, and people are conducting themselves as though the pandemic is actually over. The rising cases in Alabama can be attributed to the lackadaisical attitude toward the pandemic. This evening, we have a panel of distinguished experts that will address why there is a state of emergency and how we can dispel the myths associated with the coronavirus.
We certainly wish that we could provide you with COVID-19 data from all counties in the state of Alabama and the nation. However, our area of focus is limited to Etowah County. COVID-19 is and continues to be a serious matter for our communities. Ms. Sonia Anthony, will you please provide us with the state of the emergency in Etowah County?
Certainly. We would be remiss in discussing statistical data without sharing a complete picture. On Wednesday, May the 11th, 2022, during a press conference, President Joe Biden provided the grim results that the United States has now surpassed 1 million COVID-19 related deaths. Only 2 days prior to that announcement, the reported deaths were at 991,000. That's 8,800 deaths in a 2-day time period. Let's put that in perspective. More Americans have died in 2 years from COVID-19 than in 40 years of the HIV/AIDS epidemic. Matter of fact, the most recent pandemic was the Spanish flu of 1918-19. Number of deaths then, 675,000. Let that sink in. Close to home in the state of Alabama, COVID-related deaths as of May the 17th was at 19,633. Reported cases in the state of Alabama, 1.3 million, with 651 of the deaths in Etowah County. Reported cases, 28,792. We cannot become weary, but instead stay the course. COVID-19 and its variants are still here. However, if we practice due diligence by getting our vaccinations, boosters, wearing our masks, and respecting personal space, it won't have to stay. Those are your facts. What can we do about it?
Thank you so much, Sonia, for that information. It's that time again. Are you ready for our second Ivy Pearl break? Let's get ready to win.
Can we put up our other wheel, please? Thank you, Miss Aisha. This is for a $25 gift card. Again, you must be present to win. So we spin that illustrious wheel. Monica Jones. Miss Monica, are you in the room? Miss Monica, are you here? Well, let Miss Monica know that she missed out on a $25 gift card. Can you spin that wheel one more time? Mr. Kenneth Townsend. Mr. Kenneth, are you here?
Yes.
Excellent. Mr. Kenneth, I will be getting with you to get some additional information so we can mail you that $25 gift card. Congratulations.
That is wonderful. That's actually my father. So I will surely let him know. He couldn't come off mute fast enough, but I will let him know. So what is a battle? Battle means to fight or struggle tenaciously to achieve or resist something. Dr. Sabrina Morgan Graves has graciously provided us with a glimpse into her tenacious fight against COVID-19. Let us take a look.
Hi, I'm Dr. Sabrina Morgan Graves, and I had a life-threatening battle with COVID-19 November 2020. The vaccines were not available when I had COVID-19. On November 7th, 2020, I came home with a high fever, and I had fevers and chills and excessive coughing. I immediately was checked for COVID-19, and I was positive. Once upon getting my positive diagnosis, I was treated with antibiotics. I progressively got worse over that week. I sought medical attention the first time and was told your oxygen is 94%, it's too high. Continue taking your medication. The second time, I went to the ER at St. Vincent's in Birmingham, and they did do a chest x-ray, CT scan, and labs. All of the labs came back normal. The CT and chest x-ray showed mild or early pneumonia. I was told that I was breathing well enough, my oxygen was staying up enough, and to go home. Within 24 hours, I had progressive high fevers, shaking chills, and was struggling to breathe. I went back to the ER. Upon this ER trip, I was found to have a complete whiteout of my lungs. My white blood cell count was high, and I was very hypoxemic. I was immediately placed on the COVID floor and treated with IV antibiotics and oxygen. However, I progressively got worse. My pulmonologist, Dr. Carl Schrader, came in and my oxygen had dropped to 48%. I was immediately rushed to the ICU. In the ICU, I was started on BiPAP with 10% of oxygen used, 10 liters of oxygen being used to help me. I did not have to go on a ventilator because I had a strong heart and strong kidney function. I progressively got better. Even though I was getting better, I remained in the ICU for 2 weeks, and I had to stay in the hospital for 4 weeks. I came home on 2 liters of oxygen. During my battle with COVID-19, I lost 60 pounds, I lost all my hair, and all of my skin peeled off my body. However, I was greatly blessed with a great medical team, an awesome husband who helped nurse me back to health. That said, I was one of the lucky ones. I was lucky because I did not have end organ damage when I had COVID-19. I am still blessed right now to have fully recovered and have no lingering effects of COVID-19. I attribute that to being blessed by God. Also, being blessed was trying to take care of my health triangle. Your health triangle includes your physical health, your mental health, and your social health. So we are still battling with COVID-19 right now. And my recommendations to all people would be, first, your physical health. Make sure you have your wellness this year with your physician, and make sure your blood pressure, your blood sugar, and your labs are normal. That's your first big step, is to have your wellness checked. Second, mentally, make sure you are trying to handle the stresses of dealing with COVID-19 by talking to your pastor, your friends, and your families. And then social wise, I suggest you stay connected. Do go to events. Like, since having COVID-19, I have been to basketball games, churches, and out to eat. But be safe during this time, because COVID-19 is not over. My major recommendations there are: continue to wear a high quality, good N95 mask. If you are going out in the public, make sure that once upon coming in, if you have sinus issues, or if you don't have sinuses, you may want to do a nasal rinse, and this is over the counter. Also, above anything, please keep yourself healthy by taking a good multivitamins. These things will help you to survive the battle with COVID-19. Thank you, and I'm blessed to be alive. Hope you enjoy our town hall.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sabrina Morgan Graves, for sharing your story and those awesome recommendations. And while many people did survive their battle against COVID-19, not all people did. Please join us for a moment of silence to acknowledge and reflect upon the memory of those lives lost. May the memory of whom they were and whom they were to us forever live in our hearts.
Sorry, Alexandra, you're muted.
Thank you. I believe we can raise your spirits with another Ivy Pearl braid. Are we ready for another chance to win a special prize?
Absolutely. Can you help me again with that wheel? Here we go. $25 Visa gift card, once again, must be present to win. Is Miss Pamela Pruitt in the room?
I am present.
Excellent, Miss Pamela. I will be getting with you to get some additional information. And congratulations on that $25 Visa gift card.
Thank you.
To our guest panelists, we are so thankful for your time and the knowledge you will provide to the community this evening. We know that the information shared will benefit someone in some way. Dr. Deborah Smith, will you please do the honors of introducing our panelists?
Certainly. Thank you, Ms. Marbury. We have the very best of the best with us this evening. We are so grateful that they are here to share their wisdom, their knowledge, and their zeal for protection. Our panelists include, first, Dr. Tiffany Mullins, MD. Dr. Mullins is a graduate of the University of South Alabama College of Medicine. Dr. Mullins is an anatomic and clinical pathologist with Pathology Associates of Alabama. She currently serves as Medical Director of Anatomical and Clinical Laboratories at Gaston Regional Medical Center. Dr. Mullins is a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, the Phi Iota Omega chapter of Birmingham, Alabama. Of all of her titles, Dr. Mullins is most proud of the title Mommy. To our next panelist, we are so elated to have with us little Miss Kennedy Mullins. Kennedy is 8 years old and a second grader at Earl Brown Elementary School here in Gadsden. Thank you so much, Kennedy, for agreeing to be with us this evening. We certainly appreciate you. Our next panelist, Dr. Lonnie Hannon III. Dr. Hannon, PhD, is an associate professor in the Department of Health Behavior at the University of Alabama in Birmingham, the School of Public Health. Dr. Hannon is an experienced researcher and educator. His interests led him to the cultural, political, and economic factors that shape our society. His specific area of study examines the effects of legacy-based housing policy on neighborhood development and community empowerment. He has received over $1 million in grant funding to stimulate community engagement. Dr. Hannon also told me that his mom is an AKA. We have to recognize Mom. Our next panelist, Dr. Ian Moore, Doctor of Veterinary Medicine, PhD. Dr. Moore currently serves as an investigative veterinary pathologist and division chief for the Division of Pathology at Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia. Dr. Moore is also an associate professor for the Emory University School of Medicine in the Department of Pathology and Laboratory Medicine. His prior positions include investigative veterinary pathologist section chief, National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, and National Institutes of Health. Dr. Moore is a proud HBC graduate with a bachelor's degree and Doctor of Veterinary Medicine from Tuskegee University. He is also an alum of Michigan State University. I'm a Spartan too. We also recognize that Dr. Moore was resident instructor and junior faculty there. Dr. Moore is originally from Bruton, Alabama. These are our panelists.
Okay. Again, welcome to our panelists. And at this time, we offer our panelists the opportunity to make any pressing opening statements concerning COVID-19. We will start with Dr. Tiffany Mullins and her daughter, Ms. Kennedy Mullins.
Oh, thank you all for having us. I think my perspective tonight will be one as a physician, but also a mom, in making the decision to get myself vaccinated as well as my child. It's a unique perspective because as a mom, sometimes my MD brain shuts off when it comes to my child. That will be my goal tonight, is to share my perspective from both of those angles.
Thank you. And would Ms. Kennedy like to share any of her thoughts and her belief as to why she believes it's important to be vaccinated?
She's having a little stage fright right now, so bear with us, okay?
Oh, no problem. No problem. So I will move forward to Dr. Lonnie Hannon, excuse me.
Yeah, thank you. And tell Kennedy I'm nervous too. So that makes two of us. So I want to thank everyone for inviting me here today. I've always loved the way that the AKAs do business, and it's a pleasure for me to be here today. And so I think, like, from my perspective, I'm always very interested in the structural elements that has led to the distrust that we have in the federal government and many of the things that come out of the government. And so that legacy of harm and mistreatment that we have experienced as African Americans just reverberates today in the levels of distrust that we have. But with that being said, we also have to take the time to weigh the risks that are out there, like the risks that are associated with that distrust, the risks that are associated with buying into misinformation. And what we have today is a lot of noise that is polluting our decision-making capacity. And so what I try to do is try to eliminate as much of that noise as possible so that we could see what the right things to do are. And you know, me and Dr. Moore, we've been on panels before. I worked at, I worked at Tuskegee 14 years. And so from a rural perspective, from an urban perspective, we all unite as African Americans and have very similar experiences. And so the more that we could reduce the noise and misinformation in lieu of those experiences, I think the better we can make good decisions. And taking the vaccine is a good decision.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing, Dr. Lonnie. Dr. Ian Moore.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. First, I want to do a couple of things as housekeeping. So Dr. Smith, she sent me an email, and so she sent me an email and she mentioned that she was an alum of Michigan State, and so, of course, immediately I said yes. But then when she sent me the flyer and I saw that it was an AKA event, I felt even more special because you guys are my sorors. So I pledged Alpha at Tuskegee. So so this is a extra special opportunity for me. But as Dr. Hannon has mentioned, we have kind of tag team before and done these kinds of talks. And so for me, I'm going to just give a little bit of my background for those who don't know. When I was at NIH, I did the preclinical safety and pathology efficacy studies for the Moderna vaccine. So essentially, those are the studies, the animal studies that actually lead to clinical trials, phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. And we'll talk about those. I'll discuss that. So, so I was there in a sense for the vaccine development process. And so a lot of the misinformation and myths that are out there, I'm going to try to address it because when you leave this conversation, I want you to understand how these vaccines work. And in particular, I'm going to focus on mRNA vaccines. So you will know for sure how they work in your body. But but back to, even the city of Gaston, I've visited Gaston when I was in college, when I was at Tuskegee. I had friends of mine who were from there. I visited Gaston. So, so it's actually good to make full circle and come back and be helpful in some kind of way. But originally from Bruton, Alabama, which is Escambia County, way down on the bottom of the state, right near the Florida state line. So, so I'll give a little bit of background about how I got involved in these talks. And I've been doing this since, probably for over 2 years now. But it's because I absolutely care that you have the right information and you make the best decision you can with them, and being the best and in the most informed that you can be when you're making that decision, and don't let the noise, as Dr. Hannon said, block you from doing something that's in your own best interest. But I'll yield my time and get ready for the talk.
All right. Wonderful, wonderful. So again, thank you again to all of our panelists for sharing your thoughts, and let us shift to begin our panel discussion. All of our questions were provided by our community members. So thank you to our guests for sharing your pressing concerns and questions to really drive this community conversation. Okay, we'll begin with our first question, and I'll shift it to Dr. Moore because you mentioned that you want to speak to the myths. So if the pandemic is over, why do we still need to get vaccinated or have a booster vaccination? Dr. Moore, you're still muted.
Sorry. Yeah, so it's an excellent question. But the first part of that, the pandemic is not over. As much as we would like to believe that it's over, unfortunately, springtime, summertime, flowers blooming, those things give people this kind of euphoric feeling, and they think that everything is okay, even when things are not okay. The reality is that we still have, if I'm not mistaken, the numbers, we've reached 1 million deaths in this country to COVID. As long as there are still people dying from COVID, especially in thousands per day, we're not out of a pandemic. We're just in better weather, and we're outside where you can kind of get a little bit more breathing room, but we're not out of it. Especially, the pandemic is definitely not over if you're not vaccinated. I want to be very clear about that. It's not over for the people who are vaccinated because you still have the opportunity to be infected, hopefully mildly. But for those people who are not vaccinated, the pandemic is nowhere near over because actually the numbers are going back up. And Omicron is an extremely infectious variant of this virus, and it has a new subvariant that's equally, if not more, infectious. So we're not out of it. And so that's actually the answer to that question right there. We still need boosters because this is going to, right now it's pandemic, it's going to eventually evolve into what is endemic. Flu is endemic. Flu, every year we have to get flu shots. We know that flu is coming and it happens. This is going to be the same thing. As we move along over the years, we're going to probably have upticks in cases of COVID, but it'll be more accepted. But hopefully we have more people vaccinated where if somebody were around an infected individual, they'll have very mild symptoms, if at all. And the vaccines keep you from going to the hospital, and they definitely keep you on this side of the ground. If you get my drift. I mean, so definitely get your vaccine to protect yourself and keep yourself healthy and out of the hospital. You don't want to experience something. Nobody knows what their response would be to an infection, and it's extremely variable. Some people are runny nose. Some people are on are on a ventilator. It's just that extreme. So definitely, just to answer that question, the pandemic is not over, and we need to be boosted to keep immunity up and keep yourself at a level of antibody protection that is going to help you stay healthy and protected.
Absolutely. Thank you. Dr. Lonnie Hannon?
Yeah, I want to mirror what Dr. Moore said. So when we use the word pandemic, PAN just means worldwide. Endemic is just END is just the synonym for something a disease that's more local. And so like right now we see that in China, they have shutdowns in China. As Dr. Moore talked about, there's the Omicron subvariant. So it is still worldwide. And so the PAN in pandemic is still relevant. And so Dr. Moore said it best. I mean, it's important that, if you have not been vaccinated, that you do so, because it's here and it's probably here to stay.
Absolutely. Dr. Mullins?
I agree wholeheartedly with what they both have said. This pandemic is definitely not over. And as they both have stated, the numbers are starting to rise. And as summertime approaches and people are traveling, people want to go on vacation, I think some people will probably forget that, hey, COVID is still around. So all of those precautions that we've been taking for the past 2 years, we need to continue to take those precautions. And definitely vaccination is key to preventing the spread of the virus. So I agree wholeheartedly.
Wonderful. So I'll shift to our next question, which is, I believe we touched on this as well. Would you explain why we need the vaccine booster and what ages should have the booster? Is it safe for the elderly? And I'll let anyone who's interested unmute to tackle this one.
Well, the thing about vaccines and boosters, once again, they curb the spread of infection. And so what a booster shot does is that it furthers enhances the protection that you already have after you've been vaccinated. Sometimes when you get vaccinated, the level of protection that you have may decrease a little bit over time. And so a booster shot will help restore that protection that you have. And so that's why they are important. Yes, they are safe for the elderly. Elderly people are at an increased risk to get COVID. And so it is important that that people get vaccinated, and for those who are eligible for boosters, get a booster shot. It's my understanding from the CDC website that everyone 12 and older now can get a booster. And there are other populations that it depends on your immune status. It depends on which of the vaccines that you initially took, whether you fall into a category as to whether you need a booster or not. And Dr. Hannon or Dr. Moore, feel free to go further in detail about that.
Well, I'll jump in there. So I have two children under the age of 12. And so both of my, as soon as the vaccine was available for their age groups, both of my kids were vaccinated. I understood, the reason I even started doing these talks is because growing up in a small town in Alabama, I knew that there were going to be lots of questions, especially the minute you start talking about new technology, new vaccine, people were going to be very, very suspicious. And so what I did is I went ahead and tried to get out ahead of it and said, hey, because I had, I was very fortunate to have the insight of how these vaccines work. My background is as a PhD student was flu vaccine development, so immunology. And so, for me, I've been talking about flu vaccines for years to people. Like, should I get a flu vaccine? Sure. Well, I've gotten sick from the flu vaccine. A lot of times it's not, or they said they got the flu from the vaccine. These are all things that are not true. But unfortunately, there are things that have persisted, and it was kind of like we were afforded the opportunity to allow those things because you can die from flu, but it's much less common than compared to COVID, where the mortality is extremely high, depending on what variant you got it, when you got it, what treatments were available. And so now we move forward. My kids are vaccinated, and as of today, the CDC actually just cleared for Pfizer a third dose or a booster for kids ages 5 to 11. So that's hot off the press right there. So my kids will probably get boosted. And so I'll just be honest, because we do want to travel, and I do want to be safe and be smart about traveling. But once again, we have to take our own health. The pandemic has shown us that we have to take control of our own health and be much more involved in the decisions that we make. We can't sit back. Before, it's been trickle down health care. I go to the doctor when my blood pressure is sky high. Be proactive rather than reactive. This pandemic has shown us, especially those people, especially African Americans who are in many cases predisposed to certain diseases of the cardiovascular system, diabetes, you name it. Those are all predisposing factors to severe disease. We have to try to get ahead of this and stop waiting for things to happen and start figuring out ways to prevent them from happening so that we can take care of ourselves in a very different way. Healthcare has never been really fair. And so we do have some reasons to be very skeptical, but we have to take our own responsibilities as well. So I'm going to let Dr. Hannon, because I know he's itching to jump on that one.
Oh, no, no, brother, you encapsulated it perfectly. I could not have said it better myself. It's about mastering your own health destiny, being the captain of your ship. And here we have a medical technology that was developed with the input of a lot of African Americans, and we have to take advantage of that. I cannot emphasize that enough. So no, brother, you said it perfect.
Wonderful, wonderful. So how do we prevent becoming desensitized to COVID-19? Do you have any suggestions on battling the mental fatigue we experience while living in the midst of an ongoing pandemic surge?
Yeah, see, I think that's a tough question because you know, just like Dr. Moore, I have 2 kids, and you know, you tell them things, you say, hey, do this, do this, do this. But at the end of the day, you know, a lot of things they're not gonna listen to you, they're gonna learn the hard, right? But we don't want people to learn this the hard, right? So we don't want the desensitization. And we've, you know, I know at where I work, we've been engaged just tirelessly trying to engage pastors, engage community people, stakeholders. Like, hey, let's get this message out that we need to protect ourselves, that we need to be cognizant of the dangers here, and you know, and act accordingly. And so hopefully just with persistence through trusted people in the community, let's say pastors, barbers, hairstylists, people who you're familiar with, aunties, uncles, hopefully persistence on that level of communication with those people, okay? Not the people that we see on Facebook, and, you know, not the, you know, certainly not the people in Washington, D.C. So what we've been doing is concentrating on people at the community level and at the family level to promote that message, because those people are going to be more trusted. And that's our strategy for preventing the desensitization.
Wonderful. Dr. Mullins?
I agree. When during 2020, when all of this first started, I mean, I dealt with it at work. All of the, I'm a pathologist, so I don't necessarily deal with the patients face to face. However, everyone that comes to that hospital has to have some sort of laboratory test done or some laboratory service. So I dealt with it at the hospital. And it's difficult to talk about being desensitized when the need to get this information out here, it's such a great need. And so I feel like I can't stress it enough. I can't talk about it enough, you know, to try to get the word out and how important it is for people to be safe and to be vaccinated. So I think for me, that's the challenge. We talk about it all the time. We're continuously trying to get the word out. But it can be mentally exhausting at times. And sometimes I come home and I just have to turn it off some kind of way. And so during 2020, I would come home and my parents basically picked up from Mississippi, came over here because there was no school. Well, I have to work. So they were here for childcare, and my parents, they're in their late 60s, and they watched the news all day long, and they watched the local news, and then they watch the national news, and then I have an app to where they can watch the local news from Mississippi from their own hometown. So it was, you know, dealing with it at work, and then come home, it's COVID, 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 you know. But again, the need is there. We have to get that information out. So that's a challenge for me, is how to keep, you know, talking and to keep encouraging and to keep spreading the information, but at the same time, not let it get so overwhelming. That's a challenge for me.
Dr. Moore, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely with Dr. Hand and Dr. Mullins. What I will say is that, you know, anytime you start getting complacent when it comes to or getting just burned out from protecting yourself, which it sounds kind of funny, you get burned out from being for caring for your life. But when you do, I have some stats for you that I think will help. We already hit 1 million people. So think about that sheer number of people. 1 million people, if COVID had never existed, a good number of that population would still be alive. Go further, about 600,000 people died from COVID. I think 600,000 plus died before vaccines were available. So now you have about 320, NPR actually released some numbers just recently, 320,000 people died while vaccines were available. So if there ever is a situation where somebody made a choice to not protect themselves, that kind of falls into that category. You have the option, but you choose to listen to somebody on social media who I'm not a fan of social media in the first place, but I will not go there. If I have a issue with, if I need a urinalysis or a CBC or Kim, I'm calling Dr. Mullins. I'm not going to say, hey, Facebook poll, tell me what should I do? Should I get A, B, C? No, I'm going to go ahead and call the professionals. So I have never seen a situation where doctors and scientists were so not trusted in a process that is all science and not political. But people made it political. People made it about, their religious beliefs. NPR also put another stat out. They said that you could almost, in red counties versus blue counties across the country, the death rates were actually higher in the red counties, in predominantly red counties. Think about that. So now you're saying the virus does not care about your political polarization. It doesn't care about what you feel. The virus does its job. The virus actually, its job is to survive and procreate and continue to replicate and go and go and go. And so it doesn't care about how you feel. So with that being said, do you have a choice to do your best to protect yourself? And these vaccines have been proven safe. Proven safe, I think at this point now, I think it's not about being safe, because initially it was about, is it safe? Should we take it? But now I think it's been shown that it's safe. Now people are getting lax, I think, feeling that the pandemic is over and why should I take it? But that's not the case, because it's not important until it's important.
Great point. Great point. I like that. If we need the third vaccine or booster, how often will we need to have booster vaccines?
Until people get their stuff together. I mean, basically, I'm just being honest. I mean, until you will have to keep getting boosted as long as there are targets for the virus, i.e. unvaccinated people who feel like they're protecting themselves, but are actually putting other people at risk. I have known of a couple of situations where people have lost elderly grandparents and parents because they got infected, went to visit, and then unfortunately, having to live with you getting your elderly parents sick or somebody with a lowered or weakened immune system, but we're going to have to keep getting boosted until we start getting this under control. The virus needs somewhere to go. And if we keep being unvaccinated, we give it somewhere to go. And that's what makes it necessary for us to have to continue to get boosted. Get everybody vaccinated, and we'll be surprised at how less frequently we have to get boosted.
Great. Dr. Mullins or Dr. Hannon?
I agree, and to piggyback off what he said, this information changes so rapidly, just as you just brought up today. Okay, so there's been a change. So you have to stay abreast of what's going on and what the recommendations are and what we have to do. And as long as we keep having infections, as long as numbers keep increasing, we're going to have to take boosters. It's to me, it's analogous to the flu shot. How they determine which flu shot are they going to make this year, where they look at the strain from last year and they look at different mutations, and they take all that information and gather it together and come up with a vaccine for the current year. So I feel like with COVID, it's going to be the same thing.
Dr. Hannon, did you have anything to add?
Oh, no, they said it perfectly.
Okay. All right. How do we combat misinformation and dispel COVID myths with our family and friends without causing total dissension? For example, the vaccine is killing people.
That's It's difficult. I think I've heard every myth that there is out there regarding COVID, regarding the vaccine. And I had this conversation with family members. And the first thing that I try to do is just listen. I listen at what they have to say, listen at what their concerns are. Some of them may be valid, or they may have, looked at, well, this happened to this person and blah, blah, blah. But I try to listen, figure out what the concerns are, and then try to arm them with the facts that I have. I have even told them, whatever physician that you trust. Hey, I'm a pathologist. I'm not family medicine. I'm not pediatrics. So whatever physician that you trust, talk to that physician. I have a family member who has multiple autoimmune diseases. And I gave her my opinion, but I also told her, you need to talk to your rheumatologist. That's your physician. That's who you see, knows everything about you, prescribes your medication. Talk to that person, and they can probably better guide you. Again, it's difficult because there are some people who it doesn't matter what you say. And it doesn't matter how knowledgeable you may be on the subject, they're going to believe what they want to believe. But again, I always lead by just trying to listen and understand what their concerns are. I have to watch my own emotions because sometimes I get frustrated and it doesn't do me any good to be angry and upset and I'm trying to change someone's mind. So I have to watch my own emotion and just try to arm them with the facts that I have available.
Yeah, and so Dr. Tiffany, I mean, that's a very, very good point because it's delicate especially with people. So in psychology, there's this effect called the Dunning-Kruger effect, right? So it's about people who think they know more than what they really do. And it is extremely difficult to convince them otherwise because they think they know it. They think that the rest of the world is the problem. And so, I mean, you deal with people like that. But Dr. Tiffany made a great point. So what I try to do is when you inculcating the information to people, especially people who may not be academic or people who may not have a lot of education, is again, not be judgmental, not come into it that way, but come into it from the sense of social good. All right, so what is the right thing to do as a Christian? What is the right thing to do for the social good? All right, and it's love thy neighbor. Okay. Now, if you truly love thy neighbor, right, then you're going to do whatever you can to make sure that you bring no harm to them. All right. And what if you hug your grandmother? You don't want to bring harm to her. You want to do everything that you can to make sure that she's safe. All right. When you hug your auntie, when you hug your uncle, or your kids or whoever, right? You want to make sure that you've done everything you could. How would you feel if you haven't, right? And how would you feel if that was whatever the probabilities are? All right, we know that if you are unvaccinated, the probability of you bringing harm to those people that you love is much higher, right? Much higher, right? And then too, think about yourself in the ecosystem. Okay, you are loved as well, right? People love you. So how would all of these people feel if you didn't do what you could, in the situation and you got an option, you got a free option, okay? So again, I try to come not in a judgmental way, but in a way that lays out the risk that you are presenting to people who you say you love, right? And I've had mixed results with that, and so, but again, like Dr. Tiffany says, some people, it's a work in progress. You have to just stay persistent.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Dr. Moore, did you have anything?
Sure. I will say that I actually thrive in talking to people in smaller groups and one-on-one about this. I had a call one time, and it was blackdoctors.org, and we had 34,000 people on the call. There is no way you can seriously address questions that people have. And but when I had a chance to talk to people, small groups, one-on-one, and as Dr. Hannon and Dr. Mullins just said, I had to be patient. I had to listen to their questions, listen to their concerns, and no matter how far-fetched it was, I had to listen to what they said, let them get it out, and I can't be confrontational. The thing about the truth is, you tell it one time, you can walk away. You don't have to sit there and support it. You don't have to. I had my own mother, who was not a fan of vaccines. I'm gonna be very transparent. My own mother was not a fan of vaccines. I had been talking to her for years about getting flu vaccines, especially as she's gotten older. Finally, she started doing that. Now COVID has gotten her attention. I have her ear now. But I had talked to her, and she finally went ahead and got a COVID vaccine. Come to find out, a couple of months later, she gets exposed to COVID. She got infected with COVID. My mom is 80. Now, has she not been vaccinated? I think this conversation would have been very different. But she got infected. She had congestion, felt a little off. And I told her, I said, just like you used to tell me, listen to me. I told her, I said, this is my turn to tell you, listen to me. Because she was always telling me this. And so now, but my point is that if you really care about somebody, take time to listen to what they say, understand their perspective. But you're not going to change the minds of some people. You got to know what battles you got to fight. Some of them you're just not going, you have to let it go. And then you have to take the energy and put it to somebody else who may be more willing to listen. Unfortunately, there are some people who they're just not going to be receptive to logic, and they're going to follow what's being said on social media or what somebody at the barbershop told them or something like that. So, for me, that's a real world example of talking to somebody you care about, and then on the other side of it, seeing the outcome. And now I have her attention when it comes to a lot of health things, because she saw, okay, you were telling me the truth, and then boom, now it makes a little more sense. So I don't think I'll have a problem getting her vaccinated for flu in the coming year. So.
Wonderful. Does the COVID-19 virus mutate with every surge? And do you think we will continue to have rising case numbers because of this phenomenon? Dr. Hannon?
Well, I'm gonna defer to the medical scientist on this.
Okay. Dr. Mullins?
Well, what happens is every time you have the virus infects a cell, it replicates. And sometimes during that process, mistakes happen. And so those mistakes cause the mutations. The way that you can stop the mutations from happening is to stop infections. Stop infections, number one, get vaccinated. And so some mutations don't cause any problems. You don't notice a difference. It doesn't change anything about the virus. Some mutations do. It makes it more virulent or makes it more infective. And so as long as we keep having people not vaccinated or infections, we're going to have these mutations. Now, whether the mutations cause, serious problems, well, they can, or they might not. So the key to that is slowing the spread of the virus and slowing the spread of the infection. That's the key.
Dr. Moore, you good? All right. Okay. All right. Would you say that COVID-19 will follow seasons such as flu season? Would you think that we are headed towards a seasonal COVID-19 vaccine?
I think so. And this is something that I think Dr. Moore touched on earlier. Again, I personally believe it'll be something that's similar to the flu. Yes, we have a vaccine, but we have to keep an eye on the mutations. We have to keep track of how things are going. When it gets colder outside, people are not inside. I mean, not outside as much, they're inside. And so you have greater ability for disease transmission. So I think that it's going to be similar to what we see with the flu every year, that it will be seasonal. I also think we may have spikes in the summertime once people start to get out and also, you know, people travel and things of that nature. So that's my take on that.
Yeah, the spikes in cases will be just like flu. Well, and flu, and it's just funny because flu is different. Flu is different in the sense of because its seasonality is based on its route of spread, and that's a whole cycle with birds and all this kind of stuff. And so that's my like I said, that's my PhD background. So you know that virus itself, same thing. Those certain types of viruses are, as Dr. Mullins mentioned, are error prone. If you give them opportunity to replicate, the replication cycle can cause an error. A lot of times the error is not something that is of benefit to the virus, so it weakens it, or it replicates and it has an error and it dies. But sometimes that error can give it an advantage. In this case, with the Omicron virus, the mutations are in the spike protein. Those are the keys, as I've described, on the surface of the virus that help them attach to your cell and go in. So if you give it more keys or essentially a master key, it gets in your cell easier, therefore it infects you easier. But the seasonality of it could absolutely, I think what's going to happen with COVID is that you're going to see it in the wintertime, as Dr. Mullins said, and you're going to see it in the summer. Summer because we're going to move from outside to inside. When it gets super hot, especially in the South, and everybody's inside sharing the same air, if you don't have a HEPA filter and all that kind of stuff. So in the wintertime, we're all closed, we're all inside, close proximity. In the hot summertime, we're all inside in close proximity. That's when you have a very easy transmission of a respiratory virus. And so that's kind of what we're going to see probably for years to come, honestly. But that's why, you know, if I'm telling you right now, if other people are telling you it's going to be years for this to go away, go ahead and get vaccinated. Give yourself some peace of mind. Or you can just continue to dodge raindrops for the next couple of years. And that's a hard thing to do. That's a hard thing to do. So that's my piece on that.
Dr. Hannon?
Yeah, well, no, I agree. And so as a social scientist, like I like to defer to the medical scientists for those specific questions. But no, I agree, you're rolling the dice. And you're rolling the dice, and your point is not probable. It's risky.
Okay. Would you explain long COVID? Is there a sector of the population more susceptible to the signs and symptoms of long COVID, such as fatigue, difficulty breathing, or headache?
Again, Dr. Mullins and Dr. Moore.
So long COVID is when you have someone who's been infected, but they continue to show symptoms, just say, 4 or 5 weeks after the initial infection. And it can be a myriad of symptoms. It can be respiratory symptoms. It can be, cardiovascular. Some people have neurological symptoms. They have, tingling and burning in their hands, or just musculoskeletal fatigue. It can be a myriad of things. First off, the unvaccinated are predisposed to long COVID, and people who have other health issues, who are predisposed to other health issues. However, you can have COVID and have like a mild case of it and still get long COVID. Some of those people have had more severe courses that end up with long COVID, but you never know. I know someone personally who has long COVID, and she has been reinfected probably 4 or 5 times over the past year, and she's really struggling with it. It has affected everything. It has affected her ability to work. And so she came to me and asked me for help. And so I referred her to a pulmonologist in the Birmingham area to try to get to the root of things, to see if they can help her. But it's, there are segments of the population who are predisposed, but again, you can have a mild case of COVID and still end up having long COVID syndrome. So you're once again unvaccinated, are at high risk. And so your best bet is to get vaccinated.
Dr. Moore, did you have anything to add?
Dr. Mullins is right on point. There actually was some data earlier that showed that people who were vaccinated, sometimes even after developing long COVID, had a somewhat of a degree of reduction of long COVID symptoms. So some of the groups that I'm working with now at Emory are looking at studies to try to determine what the actual cause of long COVID is. If you think about it, long COVID is clearly very far after the initial infection. So it's not necessarily related to the actual active virus. This is more of a response of your immune system to having been infected. So now it's almost like having an autoimmune disease. Something sets your immune system off, and now the immune system is so agitated that sometimes it causes, casualties. You have side effects that are associated with your immune system doing its normal thing, but in this case, it's not normal. It's causing long-term issues, and people can have issues from even stroke, cardiovascular disease, renal issues, kidney issues. So you name it. It's multi-systemic. Some people have had to have rehabilitation in the sense of learning how to walk again. It affects every system. So it's truly a syndrome. It's not a clear and distinct set of things. It affects multiple systems, and you don't, once again, like Dr. Hannon said, you don't want to roll the dice and find out not only what the initial infection will do to you, but then what the potential is for you to have long COVID after that. So these are all things that why even take those risks, and just go ahead and get vaccinated and just keep those things kind of where they are, and they're just possibilities, but they become much more realistic if you don't get vaccinated.
Thank you. So we will finish up with this last question, and it is, what lessons have we learned from managing the COVID pandemic? Will these lessons better prepare us for future pandemics?
Yeah, I think, and I hate to be in the middle on this, but yes and no, right? Like, I think that the message, so like from a social scientist perspective, what I saw was a confluence of a lot of things, okay? We had a presidential election, a very different type of presidential election. And a lot of misinformation was being used to polarize us as Americans. Like I oftentimes compare where we were in 2020 with the polio vaccine in the 1950s, when the country was a little bit more unified in terms of, in a lot of ways. And so you had a presidential campaign, you had a virus, you had a lot of different things going out. You got this huge social media presence. You got Russians, you got and it's like, wow, okay, there was so much bad information out there. And so for a person, anybody could pick up something and turn that misinformation into something that they already agree with, and kind of use it and really be thinking incorrect, right? So I guess, just more directly to your questions, like lessons learned, like we got to get out front on the messaging, okay? The messaging can't start with the politicians, and it can't start with the bad actors on social media, like epidemiologists, MDs, people like me in health behavior. We got to get ahead and on the front end of the messaging. Okay, that's the first thing. That's the first lesson that I've learned. I think we've also we've developed some really cool technologies, the mRNA technologies, and we've got a repertoire of expertise and knowledge that we could deploy now for future pandemics, which is impressive. Much of which was developed by Black folks, by African Americans, right? Which makes me very proud. So that's what I'm left with for the future. Okay, we got lots of knowledge and expertise and our ability to deploy and handle the next pandemic. And we also need to do a better job of getting out front on the messaging end of it.
Absolutely.
I hope that we have really understood the effects of COVID on mental health. Mental health gets such a stigma, negative stigma. But I really hope that we can take some lessons from COVID and how it affected people's mental health and do a better job with making mental health services more accessible to people. I know it was difficult for my child when they shut down the schools. She enjoys school. She enjoys, being with her friends, and it was difficult. It was very hard for her to go to virtual. It was difficult for, shelter in place and shelter at home, not being able to go places and be around your family. It was difficult for so many of us that lost loved ones. And the anger and the anguish that we felt because, we may have felt this did not have to happen this way, and to piggyback on misinformation and just a lot of different reasons, a lot of different things that play into that. So I hope that we can take a long, hard look at how this affected people's mental health, people losing jobs, everything associated with that, and go forward and do a better job with providing services and providing better accessibility to mental health resources.
Absolutely.
I'll bring up the tail because Dr. Hannah and Dr. Mullins said it just right. But I do believe that this pandemic, as I mentioned earlier, has really exposed a hole in the health of really the health of the country, but in general, especially the health of Black folks. Sometimes we're the last to know. Sometimes we're the last to understand. But in this case, it's different. And as Dr. Hannon said, Dr. Kizmekia Corbett, she's one of the co-creators of the Moderna platform, the Moderna mRNA vaccine platform. And so Kizzy is a friend of mine. And so it's funny that a lot of people didn't know that she was involved in that process. And so I would, tell people like, well, because people would use the excuse, well, they're trying to kill us. They're trying to take us out. We have to stop living in those situations. We have opportunities to stay at the table in these processes, these discussions. We got Dr. Mullins, we got Black doctors, we got scientists, we got social scientists, and then we got people like Kennedy. I know she's not looking at the camera, but that's the future. We got STEM programs. My kids, I'm trying to push them into STEM, and because I want them to be those next set of people to push the envelope a little further. So we can't live in Tuskegee, syphilis experiment times and then use that as an excuse while we're steadily dying from something that we can prevent. None of that makes sense. So now we have to do is say, okay, that was then, we learned the lesson from then, but we also have to acknowledge what's going on now. We have Black scientists and doctors and stuff involved in the healthcare. We got to trust them. And we have to also, as those people, we have to be more expressive and make sure that our communities understand what's going on, be a part of clinical trials, be a part of the development process. We can't just wait for something to happen, because now a lot of people, what if they didn't make the vaccine for me? But we have to participate in clinical trials in order for us to find out sometimes those things that we need to know. So these are just all things that, I just wanted to make sure that we mentioned before the end of the talk. But the biggest thing is that I think it has identified the situation. We need to make sure that we are much more involved proactively than reactively to our own health and to the things that go on from science, medicine, biomedical research. We just need to be in the know. It's great to be on social media, but don't let that be your only source of information.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So as we wrap up, would any of our panelists like to make any final and closing statements?
I'm going to make a statement because she says she's ready to talk now. But for anyone who is, hasn't been vaccinated and who is undecided, I guess one of the things that I had to do was look at the risk of the vaccine versus the risk of me catching COVID and what would happen. And so, moment of transparency, I am at a slightly higher risk for contracting COVID. And then coupled with my job and what I do on a daily basis, I'm around people all day long. So for me, that was the deciding point is where's the greatest risk? And the greatest risk was me catching COVID and having an adverse effect. So that's how I kind of rationalized it. And as for, I mentioned my parents who, had to come over and try to help out during the pandemic. Well, as you said, you got to love your neighbor. I look out for myself, but I also have to look out for other people too. I have to look out for this one right here. And so it was the same thought process when I, decided to get her vaccinated. She's in school. She did well in virtual, but she prefers to be in person. So I knew I wanted to send her back to school. She plays soccer. I know I want her to play soccer and have that interaction and be able to get out and do things. We are starting to travel a little bit, and we took a trip to Disney World last month. But we still took precautions. We still wore masks. So that's kind of, that was my decision point. And I will let her, for anyone who is thinking about getting their child vaccinated, you want to talk about your experience, what happened when you got vaccinated? Okay, go for it. What did I do? Just talk. What happened when you got vaccinated? Were you scared?
Not really. I was, but there was this little frog that you could squeeze, so it didn't hurt that as much.
And did you understand why I wanted you to get vaccinated?
Yes, so I won't get sick.
Okay, very good. Is there anything else you'd like to say? Gotta hurry up. We gotta go.
Stay safe and active, and don't let COVID stop the way you want to do.
All right. Thank you very much. Good job.
Yes.
That was perfect. Beautiful.
Yes, it was. Dr. Hannon, did you have anything?
Yeah, no, I want to thank my colleagues, Dr. Moore, Dr. Mullins. I have learned a lot just being here on the panel with you. I want to thank the beautiful and stunning, as always, AKAs for inviting me. And if I could just, I've done dozens of focus groups with this. And one of the groups I'm most concerned about are young people, specifically young men. And if I could just, implore them that, listen, you're not invincible. I mean, when I was 18, 19 years old, I thought I was invincible too. And, the Lord has blessed me with the opportunity to live long enough to see that I'm not, right? But if there are any young folks, especially young men listening right now, you may be healthy, but you're not invincible. And, you have a job as, being a protector of your family, and protector of your community. And, I implore you just to do what you have to do and get vaccinated so that you could fulfill that role as protector. And so that's it.
Awesome. Dr. Moore?
They wrapped it up perfectly. I think I'll end it there. I just want to tell everybody, please get vaccinated. You really don't have a reason not to, but you have every reason to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you all so much, especially Miss Kennedy. That was a wonderful way to end our panel discussion. So thank you, Miss Kennedy, and thank you to all of our panelists. So time has certainly gotten away from us while engaging in such a timely community conversation. We cannot let you leave us without presenting our last opportunity to win a special prize. Let's win one more for the road. Miss Sonia Anthony?
Well, it's kind of heartbreaking. I have to come after Miss Kennedy because that was an astonishing message she left there for us. But at any rate, let's run and spin that wheel. And Miss Kennedy, good job.
Yes.
Our final $25 gift card for tonight will go to Miss Erica Millender. I think I saw Miss Erica. Are you here? Miss Erica, are you here? I saw her on the is Miss Erica here? Can't see anybody. Let's see. Do we need to spin again, Miss Alexandria?
Yes, I don't see anything in the chat and I don't see her still on.
Okay.
Yes, I think she just left.
Oh, wow. Okay, can we spin one more time, Miss Aisha? What about Miss Virginia Jackson? Okay, I don't see Miss Jackson or anything in the chat room. Let's try one more time to see if we can get a winner. What about Miss LaShondra Holston Hill? I don't think she's here either.
Don't think so either.
Well, can I make a little suggestion, Miss Alexandria?
Absolutely.
I think Miss Kennedy did a fantastic job. Would anyone be against us giving her that fantastic gift card?
Give it to Kennedy.
Give it to Kennedy.
I say, Miss Kennedy, we're gonna get you a gift card, okay? You are phenomenal. Awesome. We're gonna get that to you, okay?
Yes. All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Congratulations again, Kennedy. Before we conclude, we have a charge to the city. Miss Jan Avery, will you please do the honors of introducing our councilman?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can.
Okay, we have had such a wealth of information tonight, and I am delighted to have the opportunity to present to you one of our city councilmen. We have a city councilman who is serving in his third term. He has served as president of the council. He is not only active locally, but he's active national, statewide and national. He is a member of the Finance Committee for the National League of Cities, and he's on the Board of Directors for the Alabama League of Cities. In addition to his work as a city council person, he has served for over 25 years with human resource professionals, and he has worked for several different companies. In addition to that, our councilman is a graduate of Alabama A&M University, and he has been honored to be inducted into the Alabama A&M Alumni Hall of Fame. In addition to that, he has studied abroad, and he has completed a global leadership program, and he did that in one of the suburbs of Paris, France. So we are happy to have with us Mr. Deverett Williams, who represents District 2 on the Gaston City Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jan, for that introduction. I do appreciate that. I truly appreciate the ladies of Kappa Alpha Sorority for facilitating this very helpful listening and instructional session. Thank you to the panelists for taking time out of your very busy schedules to share information that has served to make us better and wiser. I think we all will agree that the COVID-19 pandemic has negatively impacted our society in a number of ways. But what stands out amongst the many negative factors is the manner in which this pandemic has exposed the vulnerabilities within the healthcare ecosystem, specifically highlighting the inequities in access to critical healthcare relevant to health resources. And this pandemic scenario has brought social and racial inequities to the forefront in public health, as ethnic minority groups are more at risk of getting sick and dying from COVID than any others. We can all play our part in helping to prevent the spread of COVID-19 and promoting fair access to healthcare. In this season of surging case counts and hospitalizations, it's important for us to remain diligent in exercising the necessary precautions to keep others and ourselves safe. I like to point out that I'm fully vaccinated and double boosted, and I'm committed to following the sound medical direction of both the CDC and other credentialed medical professionals, like the ones we heard from tonight. Please take whatever precautions that you deem necessary to promote safety. These actions may include wearing a mask, social distancing, and securing available vaccinations. Please avoid self-diagnosing, become better healthcare consumers, and please seek medical advice when symptoms arise and when you encounter an exposure scenario. Please see your doctor and not the latest social media PhD. And please take this from your friendly neighborhood elected official. This is not a political crisis. It is very much a medical crisis that requires medical guidance and medical direction. We should also make every effort to support our medical professionals and first responders as they continue to wage the war against this infectious disease. Special attention should be paid to the elderly and those with underlying health conditions, as they remain the most vulnerable group in our community. While the battle is not over, I am assured that we will win through the grace of God and the resilience of each and every one of you. Thank you for attending events such as this in support of the spread of meaningful information. And thank you for what you do to make Gadsden the city of champions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Williams. And thank you again to our community members and our panelists for joining us this evening. This conversation would not be possible without you at the table. It has been a pleasure to serve as the Mistress of Order for the State of Emergency COVID-19 Town Hall. I will now turn it over to our chapter president, Ms. Lakeisha Harris, for our concluding and closing remarks.
Thank you. Part of our mission as women of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated is to be of service to all mankind. Our Connection Social Activity Committee has held 4 events in which we have distributed 900 at-home COVID test kits and 2,750 face masks. Surely that expresses how much we believe that COVID is a serious matter. I again want to thank each of our panelists. We are so appreciative of your time and honored to have had you join us and share your wisdom and insight with us tonight. We also extend our gratitude to Mrs. Pam Pruitt, Alabama State Coordinator of the Connection Social Activity Committee, our community leaders, all members of the Divine Nine, and all of you, the members of our community who joined to receive this information tonight. We pray that this town hall has provided you with knowledge that you can use to keep yourself and your family safe. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you all for joining. Good night and stay safe.
Good night. Stay safe. Thank you so much.
Bye, Kennedy.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.